So I wanted to show you some more examples from my visual journal and also talk about some of what you're doing. A lot of you are doing a really good job on your visual journals and you seem to enjoy working in them. I take spells where I work on mine for like a day or two and then I kind of sit it down. I have two going on right now. So I'm going to make a page and show you how I work and put things together. Um, One example I want to show you is the blackout poetry. So I noticed that some of you are doing the blackout poetry. With the blackout poetry, it works better if you circle the words you're going to be using and then you black out all the other words. So some of you are drawing around your words, which is fine, but you want to make sure that the words that you're preserving are popping out. When I made this one, what I did is I found the words that I wanted to use and I outlined them in pencil. And then once I had my poetry done, that's when I went back in and I drew around it and then, blacked out everything else. So this allows your words to really stand out and pop off your page. You could create a painting around these, but you want to make sure that your words pop out a little bit more. So these are examples of my blackout poetry that I have. And remember, it doesn't really have to make sense. You can put words together, but I mean, this is yours, so it doesn't necessarily have to make sense. But again, you're not going to do random stuff. This is a page I made. I went to see Dr. Sleep in November, so I had my ticket stub. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. Love his books, and the movie was done really, really well, and I was really happy with it. So I made a page in my visual journal with the ticket stub, and then I painted the back and drew the axe and the red rum. The page I'm working on today is in my teacher visual journal. So this is kind of a scrapbook that I'm creating as far as my teaching career goes. So one side I have ICI and I have cards from the first day of school. Okay. And then the other side is the school that I taught at before, which was Lumberton Senior High. So I have a bunch of pictures from throughout my teaching career and cards that students wrote and, fellow teachers gave me. So those are going to be included in my visual journal. So it's serving as a scrapbook and not necessarily like a diary. And your visual journal can be anything you want. So if you wanted to make it like a scrapbook, you could. I love making scrapbooks and I love flipping back through them over the years. This is the page spread I'm going to be working on today. So I've already painted it. I went over it with a layer of gesso. So gesso is white paint. It is what is used on your canvases. So if you buy a white canvas to paint on, it has gesso on it. And it's really thick acrylic paint. You can get these in smaller containers, but it has calcium carbonate in it. And what this does, it gives it kind of a chalky feel, and it helps the paint adhere to it better. So it's acrylic paint, but it has an additive in it. And that's what helps your paint adhere to the surface. So I just sewed these two pages. I used the blow dryer to dry it, and then I went over it with Golden's Iridescent Gold Deep. I put 2 layers on it, so I have like a really opaque layer, and it is really shimmery and shiny. So the first page that I'm doing for my Lumberton Senior High side is from prom. There were a couple of years that I helped decorate from prom. So this is my first prom at Lumberton, where I help decorate and plan for it. So I have old prom books that I took when I moved. We would get 5 or 6 of them sometimes a year of prom decorations. So I cut some of the props out of the prom books, and I really like using these books because they have things like this in there with titles and glitter and lights and trees and all kind of decorations in there. So I like to cut up the prom books and use them in the visual journal. So these, I used an X-Acto knife to cut this out. And when you use an X-Acto knife, you can get a more precise cut. So if you don't have an X-Acto knife, it's fine. You can use scissors, but I like to use an X-Acto knife. And of course, I have a cutting mat underneath so I don't cut up my table or whatever I'm working on. So these are the ones I cut out, and this was the prom theme the first year that I taught at the high school level and helped decorate. So I was able to find some of the stuff in the prom book, and now I'm going to make my pages. So I'm actually going to paint over part of this because I want to change this here and put the school that I was working at and also put the year on it. So since it's black, I'm just going to use black paint and paint over that. And I'll let it dry for a little bit while I'm working on the rest of my page. I like to do collage, and I like to print things out and cut things out of magazines. I'm in the process of moving, so I'm not making a lot of art right now because I'm having to pack things up. So I figure I could work in my visual journals since they're small and they don't take up a whole lot of space. So I have to get my art fix in, so that's what I've been working on lately, is smaller drawings and visual journals instead of working on my big paintings. So I'm going to set this off to the side and let it dry for a little bit. This is one picture that I printed out. And this was the centerpiece for prom. So it was this table, and it had all these balloons going up in the air. And then I found this in the prom book that had the theme of the prom for it. So I'm just going to cut these out. I printed this on photo paper because I wanted it to actually look like a photo. So I printed it out on photo paper. And I'm going to glue this down. So before when I was cutting things out, I was laying them out on the pages just to see how things looked and whether I was going to need anything else. I think I'm probably going to need to maybe fill up this space around here, so I might just draw in it with a paint pen to kind of fill it up. We'll just see how it looks once I finish. So lately I've also been going over this with Mod Podge to seal everything down, and it preserves the color, so hopefully it won't fade over time. So I have that part down, and now I have this. So this was a photo of all the art teachers at the time. So Carrie, Sonny, and Scotty, y'all, I miss y'all. So this was a picture we took in front of some of our prom decorations, and I added the date down here. So, I was trying to figure out different ways to attach this on here. So your pages don't have to be like both vertical. So I decided that the easiest way was just to turn it horizontal, sideways, and then add this on there. Let's see. Well, I kind of like this way better. kind of like when things aren't completely straight. So I think I'm going to turn it this way instead of having it just strictly vertical or horizontal. And I really want this to overlap. So I'll push that up a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and crease this right in here. And, you know, so that kind of comes over. If you have things that are going over into the next page, you want to crease it. I mean, over time, it might tear, and you might lose your color in the crease. That is completely fine. So wear and tear is always good with books. I like to see a book that has been read many times and opened many times. So I'm just going to glue this down. And I am going to go over this with Mod Podge. So, it doesn't have to be like completely glued down. I just want to get as many edges glued down in there as I can. So I make sure that crease is lined up really good, and I'm going to add some glue on the back of this. Let it fold over. So I did cover up my date there, so I can just draw that to the side somewhere. And my pictures and things are wrinkling up a little bit because of the glue, but that's fine. When I close this and it kind of weighs down a little bit, it should straighten out. So I think for the Mod Podge, because I have my gold and I just thought about this, I'll just add Mod Podge onto the pictures and the cutouts, so it preserves that, because if I use Mod Podge on top of my gold, it might take some of the shininess away. So I wanted to black out those numbers and letters so I could use my paint pen and go in here and put the actual year and the name of the school, which was Lumberton. So these are really good paint pens. I really like these. So I have a black one and a white one. Let's see. The date, I think I'll put the date down here. And I feel like this is really empty in some of these places. I like to put borders around my photos. So I'm just going to draw like zigzags around here. And this is just kind of to fill up that empty space. And again, this is not perfect. So I really just want you to focus on just making art and being creative during this time and not necessarily making things perfect. Because it's definitely not an ideal time to be trying to learn new techniques. Not for me anyway. I have a lot of trouble focusing during all this, and I also haven't been sleeping much. So art does help, but I don't feel like making something every single day, which is totally fine. But I try to make something a couple of days out of the week because this is my art therapy. It does relax me. So, and I think that's it for this page. It's filled up pretty well. I have my images on here to date. So I like to date my pages when I make these. So I'm just going to put here out to the side. What's today's date? Created May 13th, 2020. And this is like sort of a diary also so I can remember creating it. So I know some of you are making your pages and your pages are sticking together, especially if you're painting them. So what I've been doing is putting wax paper in between these, and that has helped a lot. So if you have wax paper at home, you can just tear off a little strip and just put like one sheet between your two pages, and that'll keep them from sticking together. I've had a couple of mine stick together, and I found this wax paper in some of my art supplies. So I thought it would be a perfect way to kind of keep the pages separate. And it makes your journal look full when it's sitting around. So there you go. So I'm going to cut the tip of that photo off. I just like clean edges. I don't like things peeking out. So these pages are kind of thin, so you can see it's wrinkly on the back. So what I've been doing is, so some of these will have a thicker backing, is I glue 2 or 3 pages together. And that way I have a solid backing and it's not as flimsy. Especially if you know you're going to be painting on these, you can take a glue stick or your Elmer's glue and just glue 2 or 3 pages together. So you have a thicker support in between those pages. As some of you that have been making your visual journals, I added a post, I think it was yesterday. If you want your pages to be featured in the yearbook, they are doing a section on artwork and things that are created during COVID-19. So you can submit images or email me images of your visual journals so they can be included in the yearbook. So I think that's glued down pretty well. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, and then I'll go over my my cutouts and my photos with Mod Podge. And if you don't have any at home, it's completely fine. Once we go back to school, you can bring your visual journals in, and I can help you Mod Podge some of your pages, and we can, if you want to bring it in, we can kind of spruce them up a little bit and work on them in class. Okay, so that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I can't wait to see your journals this week. Talk to you later. Bye.